Okay. I'd like to thank you all very much for coming. And I'm going to talk today about Theodore W. Allen and Hubert Harrison, who I believe are two of the most important thinkers and writers on race and class in the 20th century. They are autodidacts, self-educated, working-class intellectuals, right? Harrison never goes to college a day in his life. Allen goes one day and found it too confining, right? That's how the story goes. So I'm going to start, and we'll just start with Allen. Here he is. He lives from 1919 to 2005. Now, he knew Leonard Zeskin and were friends with him. I think he knew Al. I don't know if he knew Bob. I think it was Larry, the other fellow who was sitting here in the front row. So some people here knew him. But here's his quick bio. He's a working class intellectual activist. He's a former coal miner. He was president of 3 locals in West Virginia. He goes into the mines in 1936, 37, straight out of Huntington, West Virginia High School, SMSA, with the lowest rank in the country at the time, I think. He's a factory worker. He hurts his back in the mines and winds up coming up to New York. He teaches political economics at the Jefferson School for a number of years. And then in the late 50s, kind of starts a move away from what he was doing, and by the mid-60s, he's very independent. Factory worker, teacher. He was a postal worker with me, as was Hubert Harrison was a century earlier, but he was also a postal worker, fired by Booker T. Washington. That's in the biography. And in his last years, Harrison did the homework hotline for the youth at the Brooklyn Public Library. Theodore W. Allen pioneered his white skin privilege analysis in 1965. Note the date. That's 21 years before Peggy McIntosh. And if you go to Wikipedia and look up white privilege, the first line will say, if it hasn't changed much, white privilege theory holds that all white people benefit from white privileges. That's not what Allen says at all. Allen is clear who benefits. It's the ruling class who benefits. For European American workers, those privileges, he consistently argues, are not in their interest. They're like a poison bait, like a shot of heroin. What is in their interest is their solidarity with their fellow workers, African American, Latino, Asian. All right. He pioneers his invention of the white race analysis in 1974-75, and that analysis is in this little précis, this little short pamphlet, which is available free online, but we have some copies here at cost. Everything always at cost, right? He writes his major work, his 2-volume, The Invention of the White Race, in 1994, Volume 1, and 1997. He's almost 80 years old when he's doing this, right? So I take hope, right? In 2012, we came out with a new edition, which I edited. I wrote introductions for Verso books, and it has internal study guides, right, for everyone here. This is trying to pass it on, as people have been talking about. And his last unpublished work was Towards a Revolution in Labor History. Because those 2 volumes on the invention of the white race are 800 pages combined, 35% footnotes and appendices, this is what I call serious proletarian scholarship. This is serious working class scholarship. He's got great integrity. He knows the issues. He is not mean-spirited. He raises them in their best light and then addresses them. There's so much in it, but he was thoughtful enough to offer us a summary of the argument in 2 parts, which is available free online. All this you'll be able to get through my webpage, which is here. And my webpage, my name is, for the internet, my name is Jeffrey B. Perry. There's a Jeff Perry on Scandal. He was stealing a lot of my hits, so I make sure I use the Jeffrey B. Now, the summary of the argument, so his shortened summary of the argument in 2 parts is 50 pages each part. But again, and what's nice is you can search, as you know, right, online. And this pamphlet, which he did in 75 and 76 and was reprinted recently. But I want to show you a few other things that he's written and call these to your attention. for the work you're doing now. He writes White Blind Spot in 1967, co-authored with Noel Ignatin at the time, Ignatieff today. This pamphlet had great impact on the student movement, particularly SDS, and then on the New Left in the early 70s. And for those, again, not familiar with the history of white privilege analysis, in 1969, the New York Times ran a front-page article on how SDS was calling for an all-out national campaign against white skin privilege, right? So it is rich history there.